Let's talk about the ongoing battles over HS2. We're told it's a matter of weeks, aren't we, by the Transport Secretary, Grant Shapps, before we get a final decision on HS2, whether it's going to go ahead. I mean, we're $4 billion plus down already on all the consultants giving their tuppence worth. But the National Audit Office, which is the Whitehall spending watchdog, has given their thoughts on HS2. This, of course, after the reports, the government-commissioned review led by former HS2 Limited chairman Doug Ogilvie leaked earlier this week, saying that the project's bill could reach £106 billion. Back in 2015, it was £56 billion. It was supposed to be considerably less than that when it was first talked about. But the National Audit Office has now said it's impossible to estimate with certainty what the final cost could be, and that it's over budget, behind schedule. And guess why? Because its complexity and risks were underestimated by the very people who were in charge of looking at its complexity and risks. Well, let's talk to Richard Houghton, who's spokesman for HS2 Action Alliance. Good morning to you, Richard.
Good morning, Julia.
First of all, tell us what the HS2 Action Alliance is all about.
We're just a group of interested people and looking at the HS2 business case and arguing against that. It's more the economic value and the business case that we're interested in.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are some people who've got concerns about green issues, environmental issues and the like, rather than this. But this is the thing. I mean, the business case for HS2, when it was about, 30-odd billion, was still rather questionable, in the same way that, the Channel Ton business case was quite questionable. They looked at the costs and the benefits, and they totally overestimated the benefits, totally underestimated the costs, as they always do with these infrastructure projects. And now we're looking at 106 billion, and who are we kidding? It'll end up costing more than that. Surely the analysis comes down on only one side now, which is it's not worth the money.
No, it's never been worth the money, and I think the other thing to bear in mind is that if you did go ahead with it, there would be no money to invest in the rest of the rail infrastructure. And the growth in passenger journeys is in commuter traffic, not long distance, which obviously HS2 is. So, I completely agree. The case isn't there, and this report just shows that they don't know how much it's going to cost. The quote in the report, impossible to estimate with certainty how much it will eventually cost.
Now, I mean, I think we can all understand if anyone who's had any building work done at home, an extension or had a new kitchen or a bathroom put in, will know that these things have a habit of costing a lot more and taking a lot longer than they said. And that's just for small projects that cost a few £1,000s or tens of thousands of pounds. When you're talking about billions, we're all going to accept, an extra 5 or 10 billion on a project costing, 50 billion or something. Okay. It's the fact that these numbers are so out of kilter with reality. What the National Audit Office has said is that there was an total underestimation of the risks and the complexity. But surely we've paid £4 billion for the consultants.
7.2 billion so far.
How much, sorry?
You have, yes.
No, how much? What was the figure you gave?
7.2 billion.
7.2 billion now. So, but surely the people we're paying that money to, isn't it their job to look at the risks?
But I mean, you've had 5 chief execs in 7 years. 8 years. So it's pretty much a revolving door. I think it's worth going back to how we got to HS2. So when Lord Adonis was made
Transport Secretary.
Transport Minister by Gordon Brown. He had 18 months left in the government, and he wanted the fastest train set in the world, and he went about doing it, which is why he had to create HS2 Limited, because the Department of Transport said there's no requirement, there's no need, and we can't afford it. So he ignored that and created HS2 Limited. That didn't really have enough time or funding to do the job properly, so they had 5 or 6 different business cases, and as we discovered last year when the former head of property left the business, he said that the initial plan for the route was done by interns on Google Maps. So it's been rushed through by people who don't know what they're doing. And what happened in terms of the rail industry is, of course, it attracted some good people initially who then got in, looked at the reality and left and said, I don't want this on my CV. So the turnover of staff is over 50%. The chief execs are going in and out every 2 or 3 years. The chairman changes. Back in March 19 last year, HS2 went to the government and said, we can't do phase 1 in budget or time. They knew back in March they couldn't do that. Now, Grayling stood up in September 19.
The then Transport Secretary,
yeah. Budget.
But this is the extraordinary thing, is that this is all public money. It's even the £7-odd billion that's already been spent. We're going to get that decision about what happens in the future in the next few weeks. There's a lot of talk around Whitehall that Prime Minister wants to go ahead with this big project. There's also a lot of talk about how no one else can justify it. It would be a pretty popular move to get rid of it. We know an awful lot of the newly elected Tory MPs across northern parts of the country are rather opposed to this because they know it's going to suck up so much money. The government has said, but we're going to be spending, 40-odd billion on a lot of those other infrastructure projects as well. But the reality is we haven't got a spare 100 billion, have we?
No, we don't. And, I suppose you can add it to the national debt like Osborne did, but, there seems to be a point where you have to try and live within your means, a favourite Tory phrase. And what I'm looking at this is, if you just stop and think about it, Julia, if I went to the mayor of Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds and Sheffield and said, I've got 100 billion quid, do you want a quarter of it? What do you want to spend it on? Do you think any of them would say, I want a faster train line to London? The truth of the matter is, it's exactly the wrong project in the wrong place at the wrong time. We need to be spending money connecting all of the northern cities to Scotland, building a strong northern economy before you connect it faster to London, which is 9 times bigger than Birmingham. All the evidence, all the information in their own business cases show that the growth from HS2 will be in London, not outside. And the last thing on the political point, it's deeply unpopular, and weirdly, it gets more unpopular the further you get away from London with it.
Yeah, what a surprise indeed. And again, if you ask people what they're crying out for is better links. We talk about this so many times on the show. East and West, between all the major hub cities of Westlands and West Midlands and the East Midlands and the North, but also bus services as well. A lot of things that they're just not as sexy as a big fancy train line that someone can cut a ribbon for. But unfortunately, that is actually what people want the money spent on. Richard Houghton, spokesman for HS2 Action Alliance. Thank you very much indeed for that.